Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to Fat Cat Collections. And I just want to do a follow-up video since we're coming around, getting closer to the holiday time, closer to Black Friday, and some of you folks might be in the market for maybe upgrading parts of your network. Now, you guys, I'm not a network engineer. I've learned how to do some things. I do the best I can, and I'm always willing to learn. Some of you guys know a lot more about networks, but then again, I've talked to a lot of guys who do this for a job and still say the dumbest friggin' thing. So when I give you guys a review of a product or an experience, don't necessarily come back and blame me for the problem, okay? I'm pretty well aware when I have an issue or not, how to solve it, and if I don't know how to solve it, how to reach out to somebody who can help. So I wanted to just answer the question, are Asus routers any good? And I do some of these videos sometimes where I just basically label any good, because it seems like a lot of people use that search term when researching a product. So I want to give you guys my updated 2 cents on Asus routers. Now, when I was in the market for a router, there's lots of different brands out there, and Asus, you know, they've been around for quite some time. They make great phones. I've had some of their computers. I've always had pretty positive experience with Asus. And upon looking at the different routers out there, I was upgrading because, to be honest with you, I used to just use my Action Tech router that came with my internet service. Not even an antenna on the outside, just straight internal. And it worked for a long time when I had, you know, my iPod Touch and a DVD player plugged into it for Netflix streaming. But as my network, as the demand for resources, demand for bandwidth has increased in my network, since all these smart home devices that I've added, I mean, I think I have at any given time up to like 80 devices, 70 to 80 devices on the network. And so naturally, nothing is foolproof. And now maybe if I was a network engineer, maybe I can make it absolutely perfect and maybe upgrade it to some enterprise level stuff. But let me tell you, I just want to give you my experience with the Asus router. I have the ACRT 3200. It's almost the top of the line Asus router when I bought it, which is probably about, I'd say maybe a year and a half, maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I have to tell you, it's been nothing but a headache with this damn thing. I have tried everything to get this router to work reliably. I had nothing. Once I got up to like 25 clients, problems. And these clients weren't even, all these clients were asking for was a connection. They weren't downloading, they weren't using bandwidth, they just required to be connected, such as a lot of smart bulbs. Now the video cameras, security cameras, those do require a constant stream of bandwidth, of course, I'm saying that correctly. But this device would constantly drop connections. My Sonos smart switches just drop connection. You couldn't get these things to reconnect unless you rebooted the router, and then it would happen again. I tried everything. Now, the thing about the Asus router is that I left it set to factory settings as far as the Smart Connect rules, where it'll actually shift your different devices depending on whether they're 2.4 gigahertz or 5. It'll actually switch them over to different. It's almost like lanes on the freeway. With this router, you have 3. You have your 2 different lanes of 5 gigahertz, and then you have your 2.4 for your older and legacy devices. And guys, let's face it, when you start looking at a lot of this stuff, a lot of these inexpensive or expensive smart home devices, there are not many smart home tech devices that run at 5 gigahertz. They just don't. Most of them are all 2.4. So whether it's LifeX bulbs, Philips Hue, which actually uses a hub a little bit different, any of the bulbs that you'll find on Amazon or any of the ones I've reviewed, Sonos smart switches, smart wall outlets, I mean smart sockets, whatever ones you're going to find are 99% 2.4. So the more devices you have on your network, you're going to need something reliable that can handle at least a connection with those devices. So to, you know, long story short, well not really, but I ended up taking an old Linksys router that I had put WRT, what was it? It was a WRT 54G. I added DDWRT to free firmware. I flashed it, which kind of allowed the router to do more things. It allowed me to convert it to an access point. So out of desperation, I just tried to change the channel, broadcast in a different channel, and connect some of those smart switches that were having issues to this. Once I did that, they were stable. So this old, almost 15-year-old router, if not even more now, handles the connections way better than the Asus ever did. And I'm not really sure if it's you know, if you had a guy who really knew what he's talking about, let's face it, Asus customer service is terrible. They try to walk you through the same thing, and I spent hours on the phone with them, hours, at least 16 hours off and on for a couple months trying to get this thing to work. They recommended, you know, turning off Smart Connect rules and just broadcasting 3 different networks, right? Well, I bought the thing for the Smart Connect rules. I bought the thing for its technology to be able to shift different devices on different bandwidths, mainly the 5 gigahertz one. So if naturally, if it sees that your device is a little bit far away, it'll go ahead and switch over to 2.4. There's all kinds of settings in the menu there, a lot of which I don't really understand. But I went through the basics. I was on forums. I dealt with Asus directly. Finally got to the point where this router was just a piece of shit, and I figured maybe something was wrong with it. So Asus was generous enough to go ahead and send me a brand new in the box replacement. It was even past warranty. I'm glad they took care of me. Well, I got the next one, same damn thing. So whatever it is about this router, whether it's the firmware they're using, and I've read lots of stories about people who have problems with these routers. There's no excuse for why an old 15-year-old router maintains a better stable connection than an Asus router that costs $250 bucks. It's supposed to be the high-end shit, 6 antennas, you know, 3 different bandwidths, or 2 bandwidths, 3 different lanes, I guess, so to speak. I mean, there's just no excuse for it. Finally, what I ended up doing is I really mainly use the Asus router now as mainly just a router. And so I went out and I bought 2 access points, one for the backyard, which I broadcast a separate SSID out there for my backyard stuff. Then, of course, I use a Ubiquiti mounted to the ceiling upstairs, a Ubiquiti AC Pro, I think it's called, the Pro version. And that thing, you know, the customer service with Ubiquiti is absolutely fantastic. You have a problem, you open up the controller. That's the only thing about it. There's no actual controller built into the device. It's just used as an access point. So any changes you make, you want to label different devices, see what's connected to your network. You have to have it on a desktop computer or a laptop, something on your network where you actually use that as the controller for it, whether that's to reboot it, whatever. I have it on my primary desktop, which stays on 24 hours a day. I don't have to keep it on, but that's just how I chose to do it. You could get the cloud key, which is something Ubiquiti has also, which allows you to keep that in the cloud, all that information. I just keep a backed up copy on my server in the event that I have to restore, factory reset their device or do a firmware upgrade. I can actually go ahead and reload my settings basically. But the Ubiquiti again broadcasts 2 different networks, 2.4 and 5. I have it on a different channel than my Asus. I get some drop connections here and there, mainly from the Zomato cameras. I'm not sure if that's an IP conflict or not, but everything right now is pretty darn stable. But everything comes back online. So you know, if I lose video connection on one of the Zomato NVRs, it quickly comes back online. I'm curious to see if at one point I actually move that over to the Ubiquiti, if the problem would be solved. I just gotta say, my experience with Asus, I would never buy another Asus router, which is really weird because I actually have, I'll show you guys right here on my desk here. This is, I'm using it as a wireless bridge, but that's the Asus 88U, and that can actually be used as an access point. It can be used, I believe, as a router as well, but don't quote me on that. Or you can use it, it's a pretty cool device. It'll actually pick up at full bandwidth a 2.4 gigahertz signal and then rebroadcast as a 5, or vice versa. It'll broadcast 2 separate bandwidths at a half speed, of course. And how I'm using it as a wireless bridge. So I have connected to it my Finge box, which monitors my network. If you haven't checked out that product, you should. And of course, another one of my Western Digital MyBook hard drives, the 4 terabyte. I used to have it hooked up to the actual Western Digital, the other 4 terabyte one I had. But I tell you, again, with that, the 2 of those, you can plug it directly into the back of the other hard drive, and sometimes it just doesn't work as reliable as having this thing just plugged into its own bridge. I mean, it works way better, way better. And I'm just using that as USB, so I'm using it as USB storage connected to the Asus. It works flawless, way better than plugging it directly into the USB 3.0 port on the back of the other drive, which is how I did it for a long time. But basically what happens is that drive actually controls, if I'm saying that correctly, I know you'll correct me if I'm wrong, every time I record a video. All right, guys, I'm gonna take this call. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a wonderful day. Don't buy an Asus router. Fuck this, I'm gonna take this call. Hello? Hi there.